Hi, Cora Stack here, Dr. Cora Stack. I wanted to talk about a really very difficult problem that Ireland is now facing, and I've been following this for a long time, and I've had videos there. Again, I'm using AI tools, but I have videos there and contributions going back years about this problem. And I wrote to the Irish Times years ago. Now I have a paper on this already on another paper on that we need to build up as you know, we need to build up in the cities and in towns. We need to do different sizes of apartments. But I didn't. There was a point made here from the central bank that I wasn't so aware of. So I think we'll talk about that, and maybe we could all take that into account. It's incredible insight from the work of the central bank. But stuck, stressed, stranded. Ireland's housing crisis is crippling a generation. Now, I have a background in commerce and economics and that, so I have some. That's why, and mathematics. So I suppose you can say these sort of things are very. It's easy for me to start to talking about figures. I'm nearly as good as Mr. Simon Harris. What do you think? Stuck, stressed, stranded. Ireland's housing crisis is crippling a generation. He's a great man for the figures. So wait till you see now me now with my figures. Ireland is facing not just a housing shortage, it's in the grip of crisis with long-term social, financial and mental health consequences. For students, young people or those living alone, the stakes are especially high. Without decisive reform, the damage may be irreversible. High stakes, renting, student life and living alone. The cost and insecurity, skyrocketing rents, as we're all aware of. An ICOS report shows that in quarter three, that's the third quarter of the year, when you divide it into four, 2024, new tenants in Ireland paid on average of 1,693 per month. That's now nationally roughly 18.5% higher than rentals paid by existing tenants. 1429. For public, a one-bedroom apartment in the centre of Dublin can run to 1,679, with lower but still lower cost outside the city there from public policy documents. Work, study, rent collide. Now I'm very much aware of this being in higher education, so this is nothing. This is something that I'm extremely aware of. In a Trinity survey, 80% of student renters said that rent was unaffordable. 30% were spending over £1,000 a month for accommodation. That could be just a room in a house, not any kind of nothing fancy. Half of those students reported that they had to work just to fund their rent. 71% that this working had a negative impact on their study. That's from a report by the Irish Examiner. Staying home longer. A report found more than 1 in 4 young adults aged between 25 and 24, and this is getting older and older, were still living with parents as of 2019. I mean, I have met several people that have told me that their children have had to return to their home because of this problem. A figure that has risen, driven by affordability constraint and lack of access to ownership. That's from a report from the ERSI. Now, this is where I'm coming in here, just examining the mental health, social and educational cost. Look, because I'm interested in all these areas. Mental well-being under pressure. In the ICOS Accommodation Survey 2022, 66% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed that their mental health had suffered due to the accommodation crisis. That's from the International Students of Ireland report. Dissatisfaction, anxiety. The National Youth Council of Ireland reported that 67% of people aged between 18 and 29 cited housing as a major concern among those young people. Low mental well-being is strongly correlated with housing stress. So low mental well-being is strongly correlated with housing stress. That's from the National Youth Council of Ireland. And then, of course, this is another area that I'm very aware of, academic consequences. Students juggling unstable or poor housing often report poorer performance, more absenteeism and reduced concentration. In fact, what they're saying to me is they're burnt out. they're absolutely burnt out and they're sad. I mean, when we were in college, we had a really good time, a ball, you could say. But like we worked, but we also had, we didn't have these incredible pressures that are on students now. Surveys show working long hours to pay rent undermines study time. I mean, that's a basic fact, and it's not being made public, in my opinion. I mean, it's appalling what's being done to students. That's a public policy document as well. Broader impacts: society, economy, inequality, homelessness and emergency accommodation. Ireland is witnessing record high levels in homelessness. Thousands of adults and children rely on emergency shelters, many as a direct result of insufficient or unaffordable renting houses. This is from a report from Threshold. Unequal access, discrimination. International students regularly face landlord discrimination. Exploitative arrangements, no lease, overcrowding, scams, and lack of legal protections. These deepen inequalities. So that's from another public policy report. Intergenerational inequality. Young people are being priced out of ownership. Wealth accumulation via property is increasing a privilege of those with existing capital or inheritance. Those without are falling further behind. And that's exactly what's happening. Economic productivity and talent drain. This was made on Facebook by a very insightful, follower of mine or connection or friend, I suppose, at this stage. I won't mention Tony's his first name, I won't mention his second name. If students and young professionals cannot afford to live near universities or workplaces, mobility is restricted, commute times increase, and Ireland's attractiveness as a destination for international talent erodes. Root cause: why Ireland is failing. Undersupply of affordable homes. New house building is lagging behind targets. Now, this is a very interesting stat that is emerging, that I think is very important that we examine, and we look at, because it's not something that I was fully aware of. Ireland's central bank has warned that planning rules, not lack of finance, are now one of the biggest barriers to increasing housing supply. That's from a report from Reuters. Tenure insecurity and poor regulation. Many renters, especially students and newcomers, experience insecure leases, lack of legal protections, informal tenancy arrangements, and landlord abuses. That's absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. Shocking. Cost rental model still nascent. Nascent is young. While Ireland has piloted cost rental housing, rent set closer to cost rather than market rent, expansion has been limited, and many are still outside its reach. That's from a housing agency. What must change? Solutions that can't wait. Here are solutions that are already supported by research, or that Ireland is beginning to implement but must be scaled up and strengthened. Number one, massive scale up of social, affordable and cost rental housing. Increase funding, but how are we going to do that if everybody's objecting? So let's put it out there that all these people that are objecting to apartments beside them, apartments here, there, and I'm saying we need to build up. We need to build up, and we need to have multiple sizes. We need to have, 700,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet, 3,000, all within either the housing or in the apartment. And we've got to examine, other countries where they build up. I was abroad recently in the south of France, and I could see, there were several stories high, and this is how they dealt with it, and then they had people living in the cities, living like this. And we have the best of standards now, so there's no reason why we couldn't have the best of apartments with the best of noise proofing. Is a huge thing in apartments, was always an issue, noise insulation. Now we have the best of noise insulation and windows and noise from windows and that. We really have excellent, we really are, have excellent standards here, and all we need is the will, and the planning access and the finance. But if planning's every time an apartment block is being built and there's several objections, this is really long term impacting students and people wanting to get onto the property market, and families even. So we need stronger tenant protection and regulation. This means we need to enforce longer minimum lease terms. That's, I think, coming in, but it is not in yet. Crack down on scams, discrimination and informal illegal letting. Implement stricter regulation and oversight in rent pressure zones. Now that's something that's very important as well. Student-focused housing provision. This is one that I'm very strong on. Build purpose-built student accommodation paired with subsidies. And now Ireland is way behind the rest of Europe in this. I mean, I was in Germany years ago as a student in Munich, and there was student accommodation everywhere. And there was none in Ireland. I mean, it's like the metro. I mean, it's been in London for nearly 100 years or more, and we haven't still one in Ireland. I mean, we're way behind on so many planning issues like housing and infrastructure compared to Europe, and yet we're the most expensive country in Europe. It's shocking, really. Planning and building reform. Simplify and speed up planning permission, particularly in multi-unit dwelling and affordable housing projects. Yes. So I mean, the objectors can't rule the roost. And they get, there are people there and they're experts at, big, they do planning. They have their masters. They have planning. Objection to planning is how they make a lot of money. There's no names or whatever mentioned. Whatever, they're planning consultants or planning objection consultants. I mean, there's a lot of money in that business at the moment. So simplify and speed up planning permission, particularly for multi-unit dwellings and affordable housing projects. Support sustainable urban densification and mixed-use development to reduce traffic burden. Fiscal incentives and support. Subsidies, tax incentives or grants for developers to build affordable housing. I feel the state should be doing that myself at the moment, or taking a large share of that. Strengthen financial support for renters, housing assistance payment, especially for students and single-person households. Yes, that's I think that's very important. Mental health and social supports. I mean, is this recognised? Recognise housing stability as a public health issue. Integrate mental health support in housing policy. I think this is very important. Provide low-cost counselling and support services targeted those facing housing stress. I mean, is that ever suggested? I'm suggesting it. Conclusion. A national imperative. The housing crisis in Ireland is no longer just a policy issue. It is a moral, social and health crisis. For students, for young people trying to gain independence, for those living alone, the burden is heavy and often hidden. The impacts ripple outward, strained mental health, interrupted education, stunted economic potential and widening inequality. Ireland has the resources and the institutional capacity to respond. What is needed is urgency, political will and policies sharply focused on fairness as much as on supply. If not now, when? And if not this generation, which will pay the cost? Thank you.